So when we look beyond the shamrocks or the leprechauns and eons before green rivers, green fountains, and even green beer, there was St. Patrick, the patron saint of today. And St. Patrick was celebrated as a prolific missionary, converting the Celtics to Catholicism in England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. Yet before this mass conversion to Catholicism, there was a deep, rich tradition among the Celts, a very sacred honoring of life, if you will. It was an oral tradition passed down from generation to generation through poetry and storytelling. And at the time, Roman writers thought that the Celts didn't have a religion because they didn't worship in temples. You see, nature was their temple. They worshiped in the forests, by the streams, and in the mountains. These were sacred spaces for the Celts. And they refused to worship an individual, the emperor, if you will. The Celts believed in the sacredness of all people. They believed in the sacredness of all animals, the sacredness of all of nature, the sacredness of all of creation. Very beautiful, rich tradition. So today we're going to step back through time, all the way back to the 300s and 400s. And we're going to talk about a gentleman named Pelagius, a Christian monk from Wales who believed in the essential goodness of human nature and the freedom of human will. Sounds a little bit like unity, doesn't it? We were born in the essence of God, is what Pelagius taught. And while we tumble down that spiral of forgetfulness, we don't remember who and what we really are. We forget our divinity. We forget our sacredness. And yet our divinity can't be undone. It is us. It's not something that we put on in the morning as we dress for the day. It's not something that we can set aside. Our sacredness, our divinity, is who we are before we're anything. We have a tendency in our humanness to forget. And he called this us remembering and awakening is divine grace. And he taught the imperative necessity of grace and 3 types of grace. The grace of nature, that everything, this very moment, this breath that we take, this time that we share together in this chapel and from home, is sacred. Do you believe that to be true? I sure do. And we hear this also in the words of the psalmist when we hear, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And when we look at all the meanings of the word fearfully, it means in awe. So I am made in awe and wonder. That takes my breath away. To imagine that we're made in this awe and wonder. You are too. Every single one of us. You and I are sacred. It's the truth of who we are. We are the sacred made manifest. We are the sacred brought into physical form. We are the sacred breathed into life as you, and as you, and as you. We are the sacred. And last week, Marva so beautifully reminded us that God lives in me and that my body is a temple. Therefore, I'm to take care of this temple, body, mind, and spirit. We also hear of the grace of illumination, and this is cleansing our sight and cleansing our thought to get a clear picture of the sacred. We awaken to see what we have forgotten. You know those aha moments that we have? It's not anything new that we're learning because we're born in it. It's us remembering, yes, we are born into goodness. Goodness is our nature. When I step out of that, that's my forgetfulness. So we awaken and reawaken over and over again to the truth of our divinity, to the truth of the divinity of all beings, and to the truth of the divinity of all creation. And from there we begin to see humanity, creation, each other, and life. We begin to see it rightly. And the third grace is the grace of mercy. This is a powerful one. This is our practice of forgiveness. Forgiveness of ourselves and forgiveness of others. And it's a practice of perhaps even asking for forgiveness. When we judge ourselves or others, now you may not do that, but I have on occasion been known to judge someone. Yes, I have. I see you smiling and laughing, so I'm guessing maybe you have too. It's when we miss the mark in our thoughts, in our words, and in our actions. And we do that often. And we all have our litmus test for knowing if we're in integrity with our truth. It might be when we're driving down the street. It might be in the grocery store. It might be talking to our telecommunications company. We all have a way of knowing and testing, are we living our truth? And when we decide that others have transgressed us, we get the privilege, the opportunity to practice forgiveness. This is an invitation to return to our divine truth, to be right with ourselves, and to be right with one another, and to live rightly with the earth and the animals, creation. Now, Pelagius also believed and taught in the sacredness of nature. And in his words, he says, narrow shafts of divine light pierce the veil that separates heaven from earth. Oh, we see these divine shafts, right? We see that in newborn babes, in our children. We see that. We see that when we look around this chapel and are reminded of the divinity of everyone. When we did that this morning, I saw beaming smiles as you recognize the divine in one another. When we practice that namaste, namaskar spirit, I hear and see these shafts of light piercing the veil between heaven and earth when I walk the trails and touch the blades of grass and the trees. Yes, I'm a long-time tree hugger. Yes. So where do you see these shafts of divine light piercing the space between heaven and earth? What do you see? Call it out. What reminds you of the divinity of nature? Anything.
Guitar and violin.
The guitar and violin, yes. Doesn't it shift the energy in here? Doesn't it make it spectacular? You can feel the vibration. Music does that. The pink blooms of azaleas, yes, yes. You can see that sacredness of nature as it comes to life. Yes, yes. I can see the sacredness of nature as the sun dancing across the ocean waves. I happened to spend a few days in Florida last week and just was smitten with the ocean. I saw the light in the eyes of my pups over the years. Barkley, Heidi, Harley, Micah, and Rosie. Can see the divinity in them. I heard the light in the gentle purr of my cats over the years. Portia and Precious and Juliet and Sophia and Arthur and Luna. Even when she's clawing at me, you can see the divine in all of this. I see it in the buds blooming on the trees as I sit in my backyard. I see it in the bulbs bursting through the earth, the bright pink azalea. In my yard, it was tulips. I'm reminded of it in the ants that make their way into my house. I work at remembering this divine light and these creatures that in Florida are called palmetto bugs. In Texas they were called water bugs, but let's be real. They're roaches. Yes, I have a really hard time seeing the divine in them, and I work at seeing that shaft of life piercing the veil between heaven and earth, that they are divine. So how about you? Where are the places and the people that might challenge you to see that shaft of light coming through? You have someone in life that challenges that way? Keep looking, because it's there. We just have to get that illumined vision. And we move to the sacredness of spiritual practice. Oh, this is a really important one. Our time in prayer, our time in meditation, our time in quiet contemplation. This, Pelagius says, is like the plowing of the fertile soil of our soul. Oh my. You can vision that. You can see the farmer plowing and tilling the soil, drawing up the rich from underneath maybe the hard, dry surface. And as we become still and hear that still, small voice that guides us unerringly, without fail, every single day, every moment, every thought, when we allow it, we uncover truth. We uncover it. And as we become still and practice that, we experience that sacredness of our practice. It changes us. It changes the molecular structure of our being. It reconfigures neural pathways in our mind. It changes us at a cellular level. So imagine when we're changed from the inside out, how we can affect and impact the world. And he encourages us to invite a soul friend on our journey. And I thought this was just a fabulous idea. It's a partner that allows us to share our innermost thoughts and our innermost feelings. What's the deepest part of us, to share it with another human being, so that we can hide nothing and reveal everything. How vulnerable is that, to reveal everything of us to another person, so that there's another person who knows what's stirring within us. that we don't have to travel this journey alone. The happiness, the sadness, the joys, and the sorrow, there's a person to share that with and to verbalize those things. So that there's another one who loves and trusts us. These soul friends are built on deep trust and love. And so there's someone who allows and encourages us to grow our awareness, who helps us nudge ourselves forward. And this inner journey will remain uniquely ours, and yet we share it with someone. And Pelagius says that we create a rule for our life when we are consistent with our spiritual practices. We create who we're going to be in the world, how we're going to show up with others. And the source of this rule is written in our own heart. And we're to learn to read in our own heart the truth of what God has written there. Isn't that beautiful? To read the truth of what God has written in our heart. And others can't know what's written in our heart. We are the only ones that can know that. Once we uncover and discover it, we of course can share it. But we learn this truth through the sacredness of our practice. And we also learn the sacredness of wisdom. Just as that divine light shines innately through and as all creation, wisdom is also innate in us. A deep spiritual knowing, the wisdom of nature that sees the blossoms in the spring. And this is the wisdom that is innate in nature. We don't have to tell the trees to bloom in spring. That's what a tree does. It's innate wisdom. We don't have to invite them to produce fruit. It's what a tree does. It's their innate wisdom. Or to shed their leaves in the fall, or to rest dormant in the winter, only to blossom again in spring. We too have that innate wisdom within us. Who in this time together has talked to their heart and said, remember to beat, remember to keep the pulse? No, that's our innate wisdom. We haven't had to tell our lungs to expand and contract. Our lungs do that. Our body grows and regrows and regenerates organs and skin and hair without us even noticing. Perhaps until our hair turns gray. We don't even notice. That's the innate wisdom of our being. And our journey in this life invites us to awaken to that innate knowing, because not only those automatic functions of our body, but a deep wisdom of truth, a deep understanding of our interconnectedness with each other. Now we're going to leave this space at the end of our time together, and we're going to go our separate ways and enjoy our afternoons, however we all do. But the connection of who we are as humanity doesn't change. We are of the same source, regardless of how we pray, how we live, who we love, all of those things that human nature puts into place, and we use them to divide and separate and sort. But that's not the truth. The truth is we are all of the same source. One source. We are interconnected by that web of humanity, that beautiful thread of humanity that binds us together, always, forever. So this journey is an invitation to remember that, to see the divine within us, to see the divine within all others, to recognize the divinity in every aspect of nature, even the cockroach. It has purpose, and the ants. To this life journey is an invitation to raise and shift and expand our consciousness to those high vibration thoughts and words and actions, to expand our understanding of how we impact one another through our consciousness as we co-create our lives. We don't do that in isolation. We are melded together as a collective consciousness. Sometimes we're bumping into one another in that co-creative process, but we are co-creating together. And to deepen our knowing of that oneness of the universe. And finally, we are taught of the sacredness of compassion. And we learn this as Jesus taught, so we can become more Christ-like, the one who showed compassion to all without exception. No one was left out of the compassion that Jesus showed. And compassion means to suffer with, to be moved by the tears of another. And when we are commanded to love one another, it doesn't mean just our human neighbors. It means the trees and the grasses, the plants, the animals that walk on the earth, the birds that fly in the sky, the fish that swim in the seas. All are our neighbors.